What is good, Tsla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and this one will break down what's going on with the overall market, what you should be watching for moving forward. I'm also going to talk about Tesla stock and other technicals we're looking for the morning, and what's going on with SPY. So we have some very interesting looking technicals to discuss, and all this news about the bank earnings. But before I break anything down about all of this information, before I get into any more details, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends very soon, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's talk about the market. Something very big is coming out, guys, at 7 o'clock a.m. for me, or about 10 o'clock a.m. for New York time or Eastern time, 30 minutes after the market opens. We have some Fed speakers, so make sure you're ready for that. We have Barr and Gibson speaking. And then on top of this, earnings are going to be a big factor in how the market moves. We had Bank of America, Charles Schwab, Morgan Stanley, and just a couple of others that just reported earnings. And looking at it so far, there was just one negative piece of news. Charles Schwab's bank deposits fell 7% in the second quarter. But despite that, the majority of earnings have been beat so far. Morgan Stanley beat on estimates. We have a new record for wealth management revenue. They beat on EPS and revenue, which is great news. There's also news right over here about how Bank of America also beat on EPS and revenue. Once again, that is good news for them. And then Charles Schwab, even though they did see the declines, they still beat on adjusted EPS and their sales. But revenue, you can see right over here, it actually fell just a little bit. So kind of mixed for them, but the majority of these have been quite good so far. And part of that is because of the fact that expectations have not been that great. Many investors were expecting the worst quarter for the entire year for this quarter, looking at these expectations. And that's part of why so many banks and so many companies like Delta Airlines, if you want to just start from there, have been doing quite well. Now, does this mean that the economy is in a great place? Not necessarily, but we're not really getting a key sign of decline that's going to fuel the stock market to drop really hard. We're not really getting that just yet. We could see a small decline in the markets. That's a possibility. But we're not really getting a massive catalyst to cause the market to crash or anything like that, just looking at these earnings so far. Now, this is just the beginning for earnings. Don't forget, we have so many more coming for the next couple of days slash weeks. So it's just a start. And so far, we're off to a relatively strong start. Now, there was news that came out not too long ago about how the U.S. House has passed another contentious spending bill. It's up to you to decide if you support this or not. It's really up to you. I honestly don't care. But the bottom line is this could lead to more liquidity being injected into the systems. This is part of why the market held up over the last trading day. So we'll see if this still has another lagging effect in the markets, but I don't really expect it to. It's just worth noting. Right now, there's some other things to know about the markets. The Dow is on a tear right now, seeing many of these banks doing relatively well. They have been driving the trading day, and guidance is not looking that bad so far. Banks are obviously very important. I just talked about their earnings. So far, most are better than expected. And Goldman has dropped their likelihood of a recession coming. That's once again good for the sentiment of investors, and that is some technically good news for the bulls. Now, does this mean that a recession is out of the picture? No, it's gonna most likely happen. It's definitely gonna happen, in my opinion. But don't forget, Goldman is just saying it's less likely to be more severe and it's less likely to even happen. So once again, it could improve sentiment. It's just worth noting. That's just their opinion. As far as Tesla goes, I mean, we are actually going to be seeing something else very interesting. Looking at all of this talk right now, there's a lot of talk right now about Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg with their social media platforms and a lot of stuff like that going on right now. And, we had yesterday we had Elizabeth Warren come out and urge the SEC to probe Tesla over Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter and just things like that. I mean, there's so much going on with all of this. It's just worth mentioning. We'll see what happens with it. Politics could be a reason. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I'm not going to really say anything, but it's pretty crazy how all of this is still going on. As far as Tesla goes, I didn't see any major news as of right now. I already talked about this news right over here about the board members agreeing to return over $735 million worth of stock yesterday. But Tesla just announced that they're suing another company over a patent infringement. So that's all I'm really seeing right now. Nothing too massive. On SPY, I'm going to be watching these levels. If we break below this trend line, we're going to be watching for some downside, a retest of 450 and potentially lower levels. If we bounce off of it, we could see a bounce and a retest of this upper trend line. So we're going to be watching where this thing ends up breaking in. We're kind of stuck between support and resistance, and we're going to be watching it very carefully. Now I'm just going to quickly go over Tesla SPY and the QQQ very briefly. So for Tesla, okay, it's on a nice uptrend. It's respecting the 50 EMA on the 30-minute time frame as support so far. What tends to happen in Tesla is we pop near the opens. That's what's been happening. So I'm going to be watching for a small pop as the market opens. Don't forget, during the second and fourth hours, Tesla tends to be relatively strong. I'm going to be watching for a retest of this 292 zone. I think it's going to retest that. If it manages to break it, we could get closer to like 295 or so. But then we tend to reject as time goes on, slow down with the market, and make our way back up above this 290 area. So I'm going to be watching these levels very carefully. Now, if Tesla does break down, you're going to be watching 290, 288.5, then this 287 area as support, because that's where our 50 EMA happens to be. And that is going to be our support for the day on the 3-minute time frame. So watch this very carefully. What do I think is going to happen? A nice pop into the open, a slowdown as time goes on, a small drop, maybe a retest of the 50, back to the high 280s, and another bounce at the end of the day for Tesla to close pretty decently, very flat, if not a little bit green. That's what I'm leaning towards. And I want to see if Tesla can try to break 292. That's going to be a very important test. If it breaks it, watch 295. All right, so that's what I'm seeing for Tesla. For SPY, I already mentioned the levels I'm really watching for. There's that possible head and shoulders that's still very valid. If it breaks below 450, we're going to get some more confirmation of this potentially playing out. And if that's the case, there's room for it to retest 449.5, 448.95, then the mid 448 area coming down to retest and form this like head and shoulders formation. Now, this implies there could be some downside and a bounce. So if that's the case, don't turn overly bearish if we do see this thing drop down to these like lows. It could still bounce on earnings later on anyways. Just wanted to warn you, please be careful and please be prepared for this anyways. If it breaks to the upside, you're going to be watching 451, 451.36 as our resistances. If it gets above 451.36, it's going to push up to 452 most likely. And above that, it could actually break this high if it does break above that. What do I think is more likely? Well, I'm in the middle. I'm prepared for anything, but really what's going to decide is the direction we break in. We're kind of stuck between 450 and 451 in the pre-market. So I just wanted to note that. Anyways, just watch those levels carefully. For Nvda, it's holding up quite decently so far. We're going to be watching the 50 EMA as our support at this 462 level. If it does, I think it's going to test that. Then it may try to bounce. We'll see. But if it tries to break out eventually, maybe it comes down to test that and bounces, we're going to be watching 470. If it breaks 470, we're going to be watching 475, then 480, and potentially a breakout. I believe it's going to go to $500 as we approach August anyways. If it breaks below 462 or the 50 EMA, it's going to sink all the way down to the 450s again. And last but not least, for the triple Q, if it breaks below 381, you're going to be watching 380. If that fails, let's watch 379. If it bounces off this level, we're going to be watching for a retest of 383.5 and a potential break to the upside afterwards. So watch these levels carefully and do what you have to do, guys. I want the best for all of you. I'm going to end the video from here. I want to make this as short as possible because I am behind schedule today. Okay, I do apologize for uploading this kind of late. So take care, everyone. Remain calm, cool, and collected, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Tesla to the moon as the long term is still very bright, and peace out.